And we're back once again with the non-league Natter. And like I said, we've had 5 episodes. This is the sixth. We're doing Brett Agnew now, who is now at Kingswood. He's former Bridlington, he's former Brigg Town player, manager. He's had a lot of clubs, Hallam, Tadcaster. He started his career, of course, at St Johnston. Great career, great guy. I've known him for a few years. A lot of time for him. And like I say, great to have him on. There's episode 6. There's plenty of episodes in the can coming up. So, hope you enjoy it. And, yeah, take it away, Brett.
It's all right, mate. It's all right. But, yeah, great to have you on, mate. Like I say, I think we've been trying to get you on for a while. But here you are in living colour, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not bad. Just enjoying a little bit of the break off. Just obviously waiting to get my teeth back into it again and ready to go. But yeah, enjoying my time off with the kids and having proper Saturdays as a dad and such.
Do you feel like, sometimes coaches and managers just need that? I know, it's been a real whirlwind 12 months for yourself, the last 12 months, but do you think sometimes managers and coaches just need that sort of time away from football just to have that, bit of grounding and also that bit of hunger and desire back?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm a big believer in you need to fall out in love with football to fall back in love with it. I've done it all my career, to be honest with you. I went through spells of not enjoying it, falling out in love with it, and then you need something just to spark that up again. And that pre-season is effectively that. Obviously, it depends how you finish the previous season. If you finished it on a high, you've won something or whatever, you want to get going again. If you finished it a bit of a downer, then you want to right the wrongs, really, don't you? So you just need to have that. Basically, it's just for your mental health, to be honest. Because it's non-stop. A lot of people think it's part-time, but it's never a part-time job. It's a full-time job because you're non-stop doing it. So you need that little bit of time away, and especially like I said, your kids get affected by it, your missus gets affected by it, and that's unfortunate. That's just the way it goes in a manager's life.
Do you think as well with non-league, and I've spoken to a few managers and coaches where, it's been real, it feels so relentless now. Certainly, I think this day and age, I think coming out of COVID, with the amount of games and how quick the turnaround is from the end of the season to theoretically sort of when players are coming in and pre-season. How do you actually cope with sort of that period between end of the season and the start of pre-season?
When me, like I say, I always like to try and have that little break, just to kind of evaluate what's happened and reevaluate what you're going to do, and obviously you have to look at yourself. I'm a massive believer in you have to look at yourself first to try and see where you went wrong. And like I've done in many seasons, I've done loads of things wrong because I'm a young manager. I've only kind of been doing it for a while, 3 years, 4 years, maybe about 4 or 5 years or whatever. So it is difficult, it's hard, but the best way to do it is just to kind of get yourself back in that hunger, that desire, get going again, and there's no other better feeling than when you've finished the season off, you've had your little break, if you went on holiday or whatever, and then you get going again. And that's because as soon as you get back on that in the pitch for pre-season and you put them through the paces, and you're not having to do it like me, like a player manager, and not having to bloody do it. As long as you can stand and watch them do it, it's a wee bit better.
Do you because of course you've transitioned from sort of player into manager as well. Did you always when you were a player and a young player as well, and you were coming through the ranks? Did you always like pre-season, or was it one of those where you just the bleep tests and the fitness tests and getting back on that pitch again, or did you actually really enjoy that time?
To be honest, I was one of the first all the time. I was always at the front of the running. I was always fit as a fiddle. That's one thing that I could always say about myself. I was always up at the top, first the bleep tests, last, and because I looked after myself in a way where I enjoyed running at one point until I got my knee injury. I enjoyed running, so I could do. That's one thing I could do. My touch was crap. Everyone else was crap. Scored goals, and that was it. But the one thing is, that I was fit. I'm a lucky one, and I've got a weird metabolism where I'm naturally fit anyway, and I don't really put loads of weight on. I don't drop loads of weight, so I was always kind of still jogging and still doing little bits, even in the off season. You know what I mean? So I kind of got that way with it. But a lot of the time, I was a captain at a club as well. So you have to kind of show people that, listen, if a captain's doing it, then he's going to do it as well. So no, I wasn't always a good trainer as such. Like say, technical football wasn't my forte. Let's be honest. But I always gave everything, and that's all you have to do. And that's, as a manager, that's all you want to see the lads. If they're not, I wouldn't say I was bad at training. Like I just wasn't. Sometimes wasn't what I could do. So the running side of it was quite a generous thing for me, to be honest.
Because of course you came through the ranks at St Johnstone, of course, and of course when we were talking before we came on there about you being a Motherwell, being a Motherwell fan as well. What was your kind of first remembrance, like the first game that you kind of remember of football, and who was like your heroes growing up?
Well, I'm a Celtic fan, but I lived in Motherwell. Now you're right. I used to go there. So my mum. The reason why I said Motherwell, because I lived like 3 miles away from there, a little village called Hollytown. But my mum's a guy used to look after us, so he'd be like babysitter and that, and he was a avid Motherwell fan, so he used to take me at the weekends and that, and like I say, it was like £4 for me to get in to watch. So you still got to watch like Celtic, Rangers, so you kind of got to watch your heroes as such. And mine's is Henrik Larsson. Like, he was obviously the best, to be fair. But he was one that you kind of looked up just because obviously he scored goals for fun. But I wasn't a striker when there, so I was a centre midfielder when I was young, and then I got put out to the right wing, and then I got obviously put up the striker when I started growing up. So, but Henrik Larsson was obviously always the one, as a Celtic fan, he's your hero. But when the very first game I remember going to watch was Motherwell, and it was when Motherwell were actually like decent, I think, at one point in Scotland. And yeah, they played. I'm sure they played. It was Kilmarnock, because I can always remember the blue and white. And it was just we went to the game. Well, before the game, we met up around behind this little shop, and all these guys were all drinking Buckfast and all that. And I was drinking a can of Iron Brew, as the stereotypical. And you walked down. It was like probably about 200 yards to the Agnew, and it was, you seen all the people, and then through the ticketings, and it was like, yeah, it was like daunting at first, because it's a big stadium in it and stuff like that. And yeah, and you go in, and obviously they're all singing and stuff. That was my first memory. I'm sure it was Kilmarnock. It was went to watch, but yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed them games because it's football in it. Once you start getting there and you enjoy all the football,
it's great to hear. I mean, like I've seen bits of like sort of Scottish football around. So it would have been sort of around the 90s. Then you would have been going to watch, or late 80s, early 90s when you
90s, yeah. About I think it would have been about 1995.
Wow. So yeah, because I've seen a few games, because of course a lot of my family sort of grew up. Well, I say family, a lot of my sort of heritage is all sort of Edinburgh way. So I think when my dad was telling me that my great granddad lived near Hearts, not far from Newcastle, so yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Hearts. And
yeah,
a lot of the clubs, I think. Do you think there's a lot of stigma with Scottish football, with the fact that everyone talks about Celtic and Rangers, and they feel like, apart from you take them out of the equation, there's a lack of there might be an even playing field with the teams. But do you think there's a kind of a disrespect of Scottish football sometimes?
It probably is, but I can see why, if I'm honest. Because when you watch the games, the standard is crap. In terms of, obviously, your clubs down here, Championship, and effectively what it would be down here, your Premiership and your Championship, what you're looking at. And the golf, sort of joke, like I wouldn't see a Hearts or a Hibs or a whoever, Motherwell, Dundee United come out. I wouldn't see any of them even coming near. I think they'd struggle in the National League, to be honest, some of them.
Really?
And that's me. Yeah, I think they'd struggle. Some of especially like the lower ones, like your Ross Counties and St Mirren and things like that. I genuinely think they'd struggle in the National League, some of them. They would go nowhere near the Championship and that anyway. It's annoying sometimes when you hear people saying how bad, like, Celtic Rangers, it's just a one team or a 2-team league. They've probably improved. He likes Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs. They have improved over the years. But again, if they had the money that English teams had as well, then they'd probably start picking up. Because you look at, if you win the Premier League in Scotland, I think it's like 5.4 million or something you win. If you get relegated from the Premier League, you get about 100 million. So, yeah, it's mad when you think of that. And so, it's hard, but I can see why people say it's because it is in the best standard as such.
Do you think, like, because you talk about sort of Ross Counties and that was struggling nationally, where do you think the likes of Celtic and Rangers would do if they went down into the English leagues? How do you think they would do, in your opinion?
I think Celtic and Rangers, genuinely, I think if you put them in the Championship, they'd probably finish bottom half the first season. If they started getting the money and the revenue of what all the other teams get, they'd probably finish in the top half the next season. And then I think it's once they start getting the revenue, the players, it would probably take about 3 to 4 years, I think, for them to be challenging to get in the Premier League.
Yeah,
in my opinion, because they've got everything else. The fan base outweighs the majority of the English teams and stadium and whatever, but they just don't have that clout as such, don't they? They don't have the. Don't get me wrong, Celtic been in Champions League for the last 3 seasons or whatever, 4 seasons, and they get that bit of money. And Rangers have done well in Europe as well, so enough to try and build. But you're still not going to compete with. I mean, we can't attract 20, 30 million players. You can try your best, but we can't attract them. We'll sell them on for that, but we'll never attract them for that. So, yeah, that's the difficulty of it. But I would probably say you need to give them at least 3-4 years to give them any to then try and say, right, that they're not good enough as such.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think there's always that big conundrum. I think with Celtic and Rangers in the English League and sort of what if. But yeah, I think that. I do agree with you. I think if they were the Championship, I think they'd probably do fine. I think that for me, they're probably the same size as probably your likes of Leeds or the likes of Sheffield United and teams like that who can pull in, the decent numbers. And I do think that there is a bit of a disrespect to Scottish football. I think a lot of the time because, if you actually think about it, it's produced a lot of great players who've gone on to big clubs and
definitely,
yeah. So.
Well, the thing is, Celtic ultimately produced like Henrik Larsson and stuff like that, made them who they are. Van Dijk, players like Stelian Petrov went on bigger things and stuff. So players like that, Rangers again, they've done the same. They've put on players that have been some of the best players in the world. You know what I mean? At one point, Brian Laudrup and stuff like that. So he was fantastic. He's probably up there with Henrik Larsson. I'd say Henrik Larsson's the best ever player that's been in Scotland, but he's probably up there as well. Brian Laudrup, he was fantastic. Obviously, Gaza played some of his best football there as well. So there is, and again, you look at the Bauer brothers and stuff that have been to Rangers, Van Bronckhorst. You know what I mean? You've got players like that have been there, so they can draw them in, but it's usually at the end of their career or whatever.
Yeah. Well, going back to your career then, of course, you made your so you broke through it. Well, made the team at St Johnstone. Then, did you always wanted to be a footballer growing up, and was that like the goal that you wanted to be in life?
Yeah, that was everything for me. Like, since I was 4, I think I was knocking it, trying to get in teams until you can't get in until you're 5. So I was constantly, I'd been in the garden. Having 2 older brothers helped as well, because they're obviously kicking you about the place and try to, we're playing football, and then we had this little bit in the just outside it, next to the car park in our street as well. And when you closed the gates, it was like the gates were closed, but when the guy opened his gates to go to work, it had like a wooden bit across, so it was like a bar. So it was like a proper goal. So we were out there all day, every day, like constant, and I was there. So yeah, that was obviously what ultimately I wanted to do. I've never touched any alcohol or that until I was like just before I was 18, I think it was. So always constantly, I like to say, keeping fit, and I was mega fit up until then. But yeah, that was the goal. But the longer I got into my career, the more I realised that I just wasn't good enough to do that. So sometimes you just got to realise the hard way, and getting rejected and stuff like that from a few teams and not making the right choices. And to be honest with you, it was partly myself, if not all myself. I just didn't do what I should have done to make it further, to be honest.
Do you think, like, we talk about players now, certainly this day and age, and the support that they have, and do you feel like, I know it's probably, maybe a hindsight thing, but if the support network that players have these days, a lot of your pros and your semi-pros, do you feel like it could have maybe helped you in some ways and kind of guided you in other ways?
Yeah, I think what the problem what you've got is sometimes it's just your environment, just where you are, just your area where you brought up. You just drawn into things. But for me, I hated the gym. I didn't like the gym. Didn't like doing your ice baths and all your things that you're supposed to do that the elite people do, and that's the 1% club that they say make it. And don't get me wrong, I missed things. I missed, like, going out with my mates, missed things, and like I say, tried my best not to go on the kind of wrong paths and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to me. I never done what I should have done and didn't push myself or where. But I also realised very quick that I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't good enough in the way that to make it at the top level. Maybe if I'd pushed myself a wee bit further and done the right things and looked after myself a little bit better, I could have probably made a good career at the lower levels. But soon after I kind of got, I don't think it was for me. And I've said that in a previous podcast as well. I just don't think professional football was for me. I wasn't ready for it. I just don't think it was for me. I couldn't do all the stuff, and I'm glad. See, if you made it now, and people doing your head in, social media and all that, I would do my head in. I would actually do my head in. People trying to, like, because the problem that you've got, we live in a world that people don't like to see people doing well. So you're constantly getting hounded with things, and yeah, it would just do my head in, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, it'd be a nice lifestyle, but yeah, I just think for me, I got to the realisation very quick that I wasn't good enough, and that was it.
Because you've played with, I mean, you sent me a lot of the CV of clubs that you've been at, and to be fair, there is some pretty decent pedigree clubs, the likes of Bridlington and North Ferriby, the likes of Tadcaster, Hallam as well. So, I mean, just to name a few, but like, to be fair, you've been at some pretty big clubs around, certainly around these areas.
Like Steston, I started in Scotland and went to a couple of them, and like I said, when the realisation hit me that I wasn't good enough, that was the first time I fell out of love with it. Then I went away from it, and I got lucky and got a little chance of it going to non-league, or they call it the juniors in Scotland, and that's when I found an opportunity of doing really well, a good standard in that level, the non-league. So that's when I kind of thought to myself, this is the opportunity. You've had a few little things that have, I mean, thrown at you, and you've not done well at them. So this is a chance for you to do well. So West Calder was my first semi-pro team that I went to, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it there. That was in the that was up at the Edinburgh side, Lothian side. So obviously being a Glaswegian, they don't like you up there. So I loved that. That's the bit I loved. I loved people calling me all sorts of names, and no better way when you score a goal and you can get up a few people and that. So that was where I started my career as a shithouse, really, I think. But I enjoyed the people I worked with. Richie Hastings was a massive influence in my career as well. Was such a colossal man. He's solid, absolute rocky man. You wouldn't like to take a hit off him, but just the most friendliest person you'll ever meet. I'm still friends with him to this day. So, and he kind of saved me at one point, because I went off the rails a little bit, and he saved me at one point to basically trying to make a career at that. So he actually changed me and put me up to a striker, because I was quite small up until about 15, and then I kind of sprouted up a little bit, and then I was never really one for like filling out. Like I'm not like muscly or anything like that. So he just put me up top one time, and obviously I was good in there. I've always been good in there, so that's where it kind of hit off. And then I moved to Rutherglen, Glencairn, and the first season wasn't really the best for me, to be honest. I wasn't. They had a striker there that had obviously been a good bit of pedigree. Joe Andrew was called, and he'd been about a few clubs. So it was one of them where I had to kind of, for the first time really, I had to kind of sit and bide my time, which, as most people don't like doing, do they? So the only way, but I spoke to a few people, and I spoke to a couple of lads, older heads at the club and stuff at the time, and they just reassured me and were just saying, listen, just keep digging away. So that was the first season, but I enjoyed it. It was really good. It was obviously local to me as well. And then the next season was the big season for me, to be fair. Broke my way in, and I was starting all the time, and I ended up breaking a 35-year scoring record at the club. So, and then we got to the semi-final of the Scottish Cup as well. So that was massive, to be fair. And again, still, I'm fond of a lot of people there. Willie Harvey, again, another one who was a big influence, and still to this day, he's always messaging me things. So I always said, if you go to a club, you have to make it your own. You know what I mean? You need to go away from that club, whereas everybody talks about you, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch for the things you do. And that's one club that you always get spoke about well. So yeah, so that was the kind of one, and then I left and I moved down to Bristol for work, trying to set up a roofing business down there. And then I went to Almondbury, a little team called Almondbury, who was just local to us really, and we were just driving by one time, and I seen green and white hoops, so I had to go over. We had to go over and have a look and see what that was about. So we went there, and we just asked if we could like come down to training and stuff like that. And then my mate that I was down with, Raza, he used to play for Hearts, so he was class. He's outstanding, but again, he, a bit like myself, probably wasted most of his talent and stuff like that. So me and him were at training and kind of ripped it up a wee bit. So they were like, yeah, do you want to sign? So we played for them for about a year or something like that down there, and it was really good. Bit different from Scotland sort of first, but yeah, it was really, really good, to be fair.
I was going to say, how did you find that transition then from Scottish football then to English football then? Was it a smooth transition, or was there sort of similarities that you sort of picked up, or did you find sort of the pace of the game a little bit different as well?
I thought it was more technical, yeah. Obviously, Scottish football is a bit more. I wouldn't say it's like bullish or anything like that. It's just a wee bit more physical, and there's not as much technical ability. Whereas when I came down to England, not so much Almondsbury, to be honest, down in Bristol, but more when it came to Hull. Up here, the football was a lot better. It was a lot, it's more technical, really. Because when I first joined a team called Hull United, because I'd moved when my first team when I came to Hull was West Hull Amateurs, and they were like county league. Because it was just one of them, you have to get into football in it and make some friends. So I'd been recommended or whatever, and we went to there, and I think like I'd played like 11 games or something, and scored like 40 odd goals or something like that for them. So it was it just wasn't it wasn't my level, to be fair, but I enjoyed it. I loved it, to be fair. But then Curtis Woodhouse came in at Hull United, and he signed me there, and then my first 3 games or something like that, I was going about like a bull in a china shop. I was, you've seen me play, haven't you? So yeah, you can imagine. So I was elbowing everybody and standing on them and getting in everybody's faces, and then he came into the dressing room. He's like, "Fuck, you can't do that," and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You get sent off every week." He said, "You can't be like that. You can't play like that." He said, "It's not down here. It's a totally different game." And I was like, "Well, I don't know any other way to play." So he says, "You're going to have to stop it." So I think I stopped it for like 5 games, and I was absolutely crap. Like, never scored any. I was rubbish. And then he came in the dressing room after that, and he said, "Just go back to that other way you were playing." So yeah, it soon became the thing. But yeah, when I first came down, I was mega fit and stuff like that, so it helped. But yeah, it was an eye opener the difference between obviously your technical ability and not just being kind of a target man in brute strength, really.
Because you talked about, well, you just touched on that, sort of the aggressive side of your game. I mean, how important has that been in your game, certainly when you've been scoring goals as well, and also just the way that you sort of not so much interact with the team, but also when you're playing up against opponents?
Massive, to be honest. It's a big one because I've never really wanted to be known as like a bully or anything like that, because that's not me at all as a person. What I am on the pitch, I'm totally different. What I am off it, I'm like the devil for 90 minutes, but off it, I'll be your best mate. I'm totally different, but there has to be a level of where your competitiveness, you know what I mean? And for me, every time I went out there, my aim was to score goals, but my aim was to do anything and everything to win a game. So whether it's headbutt, bite, elbow, pull their lip, whatever it is, get in front of them, do whatever, cheat, dive, I don't care. I'm winning the game, and if I don't win the game, then I'm not going to be happy. But a lot of people would think because you're a striker, which I was at times. I was selfish at times, scoring goals and that, but I've done a lot of stuff for other strikers and for especially attacking midfielders. So I would have the 2 centre halves, and I'd be bouncing the 2 centre halves about, which would then give the not so physical lad a bit of freedom. So it worked a lot of time. But yeah, I think the main thing when you look back, and especially when I look back now and my career and stuff, and you come up against some people whenever they see you on the team sheet, they know what they're in for straight away. So you obviously have that little bit of doubt in their head all the time. So when I'm going up for a header, they're a little bit of doubt in their head is I'm going to get smacked here, whatever. I'm going to get, it's a bit of aggression. I need to be on my, you know what I mean? So everybody you speak about, about myself, they're probably saying, "No, he's horrible to play against. He's an arsehole, he's whatever," and that's effectively a lasting thing.
Yeah.
Did I want to really be remembered about that? No, I'd rather be remembered about the goals I scored. But each to their own, really, and that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah. Of course, after Hull United, then of course you moved to Bridlington, then, and of course the spell as a player and of course as a manager as well. When you look back at your time at Bridlington, how do you reflect on your time there?
I loved it again. Another club that was a really big part my life down here, especially Pete Smurthwaite, who went above and beyond for me and my family at times. I've got a lot to thank Pete for. We clashed a few times just because I always wanted a little bit extra on the budgets and stuff like that when I was there. I was a manager, and he knew how to run a club well, and he didn't want to give me them little bits of extra in the budget. So, but we never clashed where we fell out. And then playing wise, again, I think like I touched on it earlier on, if you always go into a club and you give everything on and off the field, then nobody will ever question what you are or what your heart's about or where you are for the club. And that's the only advice I can give to these younger lads coming through now is just give everything, whether it's not your day or whether it's you know what I mean. You can't give any more. Just give as much as you can and as the most you can, and for the club and for yourself on the day. On and off the pitch. So that means when you come off, you don't just go on your phone and go away, grab your wage or whatever and go away. You need to interact with fans, do your little bits on and off, you know what I mean? Turn up to some, I don't know, fun days or whatever, and you get remembered that and you have a lot more respect. And that's effectively where I've probably got a lasting memory in most clubs, if not every club I've been at. I was only at Tadcaster for about 2 or 3 months or something, and a lot of people still say that speak about me there. And I was only at Hallam for a few months as well, and like when you go back there, you're like a legend, and it's weird, isn't it? It's weird, but it's really nice as well. But it shows that I've obviously done something in the right way.
I certainly have. Nice, yeah, absolutely. Just touched on Bridlington then, and it was just something that came to me in my head then. And I've been to the ground, and I really, the people there are absolutely fantastic, and it might be a little bit unfair, but do you feel like Bridlington are kind of in the shadows of the likes of your Scarborough and your Whitbys? And do you feel like they're a club that could be a bit of a, maybe a bit of a sleeping giant?
They could be, yeah. I just think it's where it is. It's just not in the right. It's not situated in the right place because it's hard to draw players in. Because when you, especially like say, if you want to get people from, I don't know, Sheffield, Leeds area, you're nearly 2 hours just to go and play, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not, for me personally, I don't think it's situated in the right bit. Excuse me. Obviously, Scarborough's got a little bit more because they've been a football league club and whatever at one point. But I don't know. There's quite a lot of things going on at the club at the moment. At Bridlington, they've had a little bit better budget. The ground's getting a lot of upgrades and stuff like that. Obviously, they're sharing the ground with Scarborough this year, aren't they? So again, that's another things that could take the club a little bit higher with money. Obviously, offering people a little bit more money, they will have a little bit more choice and pick of players of areas. But for me, when I was there, the hard part was you were fighting out with Scarborough, Ferriby, Barton, Goole, Pickering for players. So it was difficult. And again, like I say, what happens is you end up recycling the same players that have been at the club at one point. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And again, when I was there, I was playing on a little bit of a smaller budget. So again, your other teams just blow you out of the water at times, and that's football. That's the way it goes, isn't it? So it's not so. Hopefully, the club can push on now, and Tom will obviously taking over last year. You can push the club on, and they've stayed up with the skin of their teeth again. But that's the same with us. We stayed up with the skin of our teeth when I was there, and you don't really want to be doing that because you're kind of, there's only a matter of time, isn't there? So hopefully they can push on this season.
Yeah, you don't want to be going back to the well every single time and, fighting relegation every season. But I remember I'd seen an article and there was some notes that I think you did an interview towards the end of the season, and you said that you felt like you'd taken the club as far as you could go, and you talked about the budget. Do you, like, when you sort of look back and reflect, do you still feel the same way?
Yeah, 100%. I did take the club as far as I possibly could. There was no... Pete didn't really want to go up in the first place. I think possibly a lot of people kind of railroaded him into doing it as such. And he's right, because, listen, money's a wee bit more to kind of keep the club's expenses, the referees a bit more, travel, whatever it is. It's more expensive, and a lot of teams will find that out. And then again, if you wanted to do well and go even further up, you're talking it's travel again, and listen, it's I can understand from a chairman's point of view, he's got a business head on, and that's fair enough. A young manager's head is totally different from an old business head in it. So I think for me, I'd definitely taken the club as far as possible, because I don't think we could have done any better or any more than that season. For what we had to play with against some big side, we had Liversedge in there, you had Mars, Stockton. I mean, they were talking 5, 6, 3, 4,000 pound budgets, where we were playing off a 1,100 quid budget. So it was difficult, but like I say, if I'd have stuck it out for a little bit, I would have got a big budget now. So these things happen in football, don't they?
So those difficult and maybes, mate. I think that's what it is. But
that's it.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, of course, you bounced around. You mentioned there at Tadcaster. I touched on Tadcaster as well, because, like, of course, you've been there a couple of months there as well, and they've been a bit of a big club, and they've been higher up as well. And do you feel like they could? We talk about the cycle of teams and the cycle of time where teams will go up and have their moments. Do you feel like Tadcaster will have their time? And when do you? I mean, how do you reflect on your time in Tadcaster, and even as well at Hallam?
Tadcaster, yeah, definitely. Tadcaster have got, again, another club that, if they just a very good catchment area, a very good club, obviously off the pitch over the last seasons or whatever, they've had a little bit of differences or whatever. But I think if they can get that in, so then they're definitely a club that can go a lot higher as well. Obviously, I went for the job recently, just before, and then but Qualks got it, and I think Qualks will get them. He'll get them going, and hopefully this season they can do well again. But yeah, I think my time at Tadcaster was a funny one. Really, I enjoyed the club, enjoyed the people around it, and I think it was just I was sold a bit of a dream, and it never really came to fruition. And that was right at pre-season. Really, I was sold that all these players were signing, and I've definitely got these players signing, and I turned up to pre-season and not one of these players were there. So, yeah, I was sold a bit of a dream. But in terms of the club, I like the club. I respect the people there, and yeah, it was just one of them things that sometimes it was difficult for me to come out of managing. Because when you sign for a club as a player after you've been a manager, managers think you better watch out because I'm there to take. But anybody that knows me properly knows that that's not me. So then, about I think 3 months into that time, then I got a message off Dents because I don't know how he knew, but he knew he'd heard that I wasn't really happy, and I got a message from Dents, which was a surprise, to be fair. I didn't think I would have got a message from Dents, but spoke quite a lengthy chat a couple of times on the phone, and yeah, I went to Hallam, and in all honesty, it's the best club I've been at. It's an outstanding club, and if I was a different job at the time, because I was driving cars, picking cars up all over Britain, and it was just killing my back. I was leaving at 3 a.m, going picking a car up in London, then going straight to football training or whatever, and then having to drive back to Hull, which was like a 2-hour journey. And it was just getting too much. But if I had to do that now, then I'd definitely I've stayed at the time. You know what I mean? Because I'm a salesman now, so I would have stayed at the time. And part part of me regrets leaving, in all honesty, because I love the club, love the people. It's such a fantastic club. The people involved in it they're absolutely outstanding. And Dents was brilliant with me. He was fair with me, gave me a kick up the arse when I needed it. And he, to be honest, he probably played me more than he should have at times, because there was a couple of times where I was starting to feel it with my back and stuff like that. I was like an old man. But I like to think that I left a lasting memory at the club and gave as much as I got. But no, it was an outstanding few months there. I really, really enjoyed it, and that's why I always tried to go back, because I loved it so much at the club. I always want to see them do well.
Now, please, I mean, to see them playing will be playing Step 4 next season. How delighted are you to see them mixing it with, well, some really big clubs in the Northern Premier League?
I'm really happy for them. Like I said, I was at the playoff final. I was in the shed end with the fans and that behind the goal. So yeah, I was absolutely buzzing on the day. I couldn't help but be happy for them all. And listen, I was a bit envious as well. Looking in there and thinking what I could have been at where I was at time and stuff, because at one point we could have had a bit of that. And listen, it's hard because I respect Dave Ricardo and I respect people at Beverley as well. And obviously it was disheartening for them. An absolute ludicrous penalty from that kid trying to do a Panenka. I think if I was in the dressing room, I don't think we would have been best mates. But yeah, it was a good game, to be honest. Beverley battered them for the first half, and then obviously Hallam came back into it. But no, I'm really happy for Denson, because he's had his critics and some people saying some mad things this season about, and I'm really happy for them that he's showed them in the right way and he's stuck the two fingers up to them by doing it the right way and getting your team promoted.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of respect for Denson. I'll say every time I go and see him, I go and have a little chat with him. But, well, of course, as well, after Hallam, you got the job at Brig and for a couple of seasons. And when you look back, I mean, Brig, big side, do you feel like there was a lot of pressure for them? Because it felt like at the time for them, because they just missed out. They got to playoffs at 21, 22, and I felt they just missed out on getting promoted into Step 5. Do you think there was taking on the job, there was real big pressure on them to try and get them into Step 5?
I think there's obviously the pressure of trying to get them back to where they've been. Well, this is when I took the job. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, like massive club and this and that they shouldn't be in this league and the biggest." That's for all fine and saying that, but they've not done anything for the last 10, 15 years. So they're not, might be a big club, but they've not actually done anything for the last 15 years. I think they've got to the playoff, semi-final, and then they've won a couple of Links Cups. So in terms of big things, I've not actually done big things. So that's why I was saying to people, I was like, you can't keep saying you're a big club and we're this and we're that. Yeah, we probably shouldn't be at this level, but the realisation is we are, and that's the be all and end all. Until you get out of the league, then you're still in it. So you have to do it the right way and try and get out. So the first season for me was difficult because I got left with like 4 players from the previous regime. So it was hard for me to try and build and then by the time I actually got appointed, it was midway through pre-season where everybody else had gone all the time. Most of them went to Beverley. So it was hard for me to try and get players because again, it's an area I didn't know. And then when you go to speak to people again, they were obviously want to go in higher leagues and they're 2 leagues above and they don't want to drop down, which that's fine. So yeah, but in terms of the first season, I just tried to change the environment of the club round rather than focusing too much on the playing side. To be honest, the club was kind of a bit lost and stuff. So I was trying to build that up on and off the pitch and get a lot of people involved that had been in the outskirts and whatever, and get the club kind of a lot bit sponsorship wise and run better. So and it did. And to be honest, that it did. So it kind of gave it a little bit better of a platform to try and progress for the next season. And I thought for large spells of the season gone there, that we looked as if we were going to be in and around there. And we did. We were sitting at 12 games to go or something like that. We were sitting second in the league, fighting for the title, and then just for the next 12 games, we looked like relegation fodder, and we fell out yet.
It was interesting, like looking back on last season, because I watched a couple of games at Brig, and I remember going to the Worsborough game in August, and even before that, I mean, the pre-season game when you played Botsford, I know it was pre-season, you can't really judge it, but some of the football that you were playing was outstanding, and I've been quite biased with Brig because like the last 2 seasons I tipped Brig to get into playoffs and do really, really well, and they've always kind of you've either got in or you've just fallen short.
Yeah,
and I remember watching you against Worsborough, and you beat them. I think it was 4-0. I think it was. At that time, I think Lee Morris was still, getting to, because he brought a load of players in. But you were outstanding away from home then, and I think, like I say, I think you were right up there for the title and even for the playoffs. And then I think when I saw you next, I think was the reverse game against Worsborough.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was 8th of January or something like that.
Yeah, around that time, January. Yeah, where really, they scored a wonderful goal to win the match, but I think you hit the post twice in the game, and you just think to yourself, it's not going to be your day, is it?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a poor game for both teams, wasn't it? It was just a scrappy game, and I think because the game should never have been anyway, because we were beating them 2-0 before a game got abandoned for the rain, and it was honestly it was like summer's day. But at the end of the day, it happened, and we had to play them again. So we hadn't had a game for a couple of weeks, so we're a bit coming into it like that. And then again, when we had been on a 14-game unbeaten run, so then the momentum stopped. Then obviously New Year, everybody's out, whatever, and the momentum stopped. So that was the most vital game of the season, to be honest, because if we'd have kept on that, the momentum, and then the next game after that was Lincoln United in the semi-final. Yeah. So we would have had the momentum to keep going, and unfortunately that was probably the most important game, and we came up short. Don't get me wrong, it was some goal by Glavs. It was some finish, to be fair, but that again also spurred Worsborough, and listen, they had an absolutely fantastic season, a tremendous season. I was hoping that they got into the playoffs, to be fair, if it wasn't us, but because just for the season they've had, it's been outstanding, and fair play to the lads. To a man, they've been absolutely class. So, but yeah, I think for us that was the important one, and we didn't show up. And then obviously Lincoln United again was probably another sucker punch we should have won against them. And my frustration started getting in a little bit as well, because I was just thinking, we're not playing the way we were playing just before Christmas. We're not playing anywhere near what we are. And then a couple of things that we get, I think we got like a draw and then a win and then a loss and then whatever. And yeah, I think we just didn't, after that, it kind of went downhill a little bit. We had the chance of, like I say, Horbury were 27 points ahead of us at one point, and we brought it back down to 8 points, and we had them still to play, and we had 2 games in hand, so we could have effectively went. I think it was top at one point if we'd have done all that, if we'd went in there, but we bottled it at the time. And then the big game was obviously Wakefield. They absolutely battered us on the night, 4-0. And obviously I got sent off and Pembrokeshire got sent off, Josh Jordan. So we were missing us 3 for 3 games, and then Josh Jordan for 1. So it was a big time, that as well. But ultimately, listen, we absolutely bottled it, and I failed. to get my team, which I should have really, me as a manager and me as my staff should have got our players better than I failed at the times when I put my hand up to that. And then obviously it led to me losing my job, but obviously there's a little bit more to that as well. I think there's a little bit of shenanigans going on in the background of that as well, which we won't go into at the end of the day. That's just life in Football Manager.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we won't touch too much about it, but I mean, when you reflect on it, could you? I know you talked about the results and that, and like I say, football is a results business. But do you think what do you think went wrong in terms of that kind of running after? What could you? Was there a few things? Because could you maybe put your finger on what could have been the culprit of what went wrong?
I think a big one was Danny North getting injured. Northie getting injured was huge for us because he was playing. He was playing at the time, and he was doing all the hard work for Josh Batty, really. And Batty was doing, obviously, getting the goals. And then at one point we had Batty, Northie, and Hutch, and they were all scoring like 2 or 3 a game, and we had that little bit going, and it was really, really good. And then obviously we lost Northie, and then Hutch wasn't available for a few games, and I was trying to sign a few players, and I just couldn't get. They were going. They just didn't want to come, money-wise or distance-wise. Again, probably like say your Doncaster, Sheffield area and whatever. It's a bit of a trek for some people. So yeah, that was the frustrating part. So I couldn't get anybody in. So then you start having a look at myself, start having to play myself, and I was trying my best not to play myself because I didn't really want to do that as such. But again, I think looking back, I maybe should have played myself a lot more throughout it. But I think the be all and end all it was I just couldn't get the right people in at the right time, and that was my fault. That wasn't anybody else's. That was my fault. Whereas I think sometimes you put a little bit more or too much trust in the people that you think is going to do it for you, and they didn't do it. So that's ultimately that's my fault.
Do you feel like, I mean, in terms of, I mean, because of course you know at Kings, you've done some bits at Kingswood United. I mean, when you look like you talk about Brig, then what sort of things? I mean, in that sort of 3 years that you were there at the football club, what in terms of the positives then that you could sort of take out of it, what can you take from that sort of that spell at Brig?
Positives again is how I left the club. I've left the club in a far better place than when I got there, on and off the pitch, and I think I've left the foundations of a club that this season should be, especially where I've seen the lads that they've signed. Obviously, the new pitch and things like that. That'll be much better for them to play a style of football. The pitch killed us for most of the season last season as well. It was absolutely horrendous. Had more grass on it than my head, I think. So that was a big one. But again, this season, the lads, especially some of the lads that they've signed who are proper footballers, that will only benefit them. The reserve situation, the players that I brought through, I think I brought through about 10 or 12 players that I gave game time at the club as well. And me and Andy Cotty had a great relationship, and in terms of probably the best that the club's had in terms of the development in the first team. Obviously, breaking in attendance record as well against Scunthorpe was the highest attendance at the club in my first time in there. Highest win streak in the club, 14 games or whatever it is. And then, yeah, obviously they finished 9th for the season, but I was appointed to finish a couple of better ones. Don't get me wrong, it's not good enough, but 8th and 9th is respectively. You're getting there. You're finishing higher than you have been the season before. But for me, that's poor. But it's little things that it's better in the club. But no, and obviously getting to semi-finals and things like that as well. But yeah, like I think the biggest part of it is just leaving the club in a much better place than when I got it.
Definitely. I think when you look at the teams next season, then and certainly the league in Division 1, I'm going to put you on the spot now because I know. I'd say with the time recording, who do you think is going to win the league then next season, Division 1 in the NCL?
I think Dernan District will win the league.
Oh, really? Why do you think?
Yeah. I just think the way they played this season, they're a tough side, and then they've signed some players again that will only add to the quality that they had. Zeph, young, hungry manager as well that I spoke to. I've got a good relationship with Zeph, and he's got that desire to go and get what he wants. They were again unlucky this season. Probably batted way higher than what they expected, but when they found out that they could, and they went and got some players of real quality, and Jamie Austin up front will score you goals all the time. And listen, they've got some really good players there, and probably adding to the squad as well. I think Brig should be up there as well. In all honesty, with the players that they've signed, I think they should be up there, and obviously Wakefield will always be up and around there. But I like to see Ilkley last season. They played some really good football. Probably the best football inside in the league, I think, was Ilkley. They just didn't have that cutting edge at times. But in terms of football, they were fantastic to watch playing football. So yeah, I'm going for Dernan District.
So who do you think will be your dark horse then next season?
Probably Gould.
Really?
Yeah. I think Gould will be your dark horse.
Because I feel like Gould have been certainly. I know they've been sort of flirting with relegation in Step 5 for a while, and then they've sort of crossed that dotted line, and maybe the club needs a reset. And I think Gould are a club that they were once higher up many years ago, and I feel like they are a bit of a sleeping giant in terms of a club, certainly around those areas.
Yeah, and again, they've got a new pitch as well. Again, like a bit like Brig. And to be honest, the Gould's pitches probably killed Damon seasons ago. Yeah, because when the ball goes out, it takes about 2 hours to get the ball back. So it's always stop, start. And it's a bit boring. You can't get any rhythm. And the game's always a bit, you know what I mean, stop, start, because you're collecting a ball from 20 yards away, and it's, you know what I mean, round about the track. So they've got a new pitch now. So again, 3G pitches, 4G or whatever it is, a lot of people don't like them, but proper footballers like them. Yeah. People that get the ball down and actually can play football, they like them pitches, so they'll benefit the teams that want to play football.
Definitely. Brett, you've been absolutely brilliant. And one final question then, of course. Where does the future hold then for Brett? Where can we see him at a club very soon then? Where could we see him?
Yeah, well, I've taken over at Kingswood United now. So when I came down to Hallam, I always wanted, because I loved the Hull United thing at first, and we had that could have been really, really good. That it could have been a big thing project. And since that happened and it kind of didn't go to plan, I've always fancied to do something in Hull. I've always wanted to do it. Didn't think it'd be this early in my career, but I've always wanted to do something. And speaking to Rico and stuff like that, and what they've got planned for the future is going to be really, really big. And hopefully I can guide them and be a big part of that, getting them, because we want a team from Hull in the NCL. We ain't got a team from Hull in the NCL. Beverley, Ferriby are all outskirts, and teams like that are all on the outskirts. So we want and we need a team from Hull in the NCL. So hopefully that'll be me that guides them to there. That won't be in the near future, but in a bit further down the line. But because it's effectively like county league at the moment. But yeah, I've seen a project there, and it excites me. And to be honest, I've not been that excited for something in a long time. So I'm hoping to get my teeth into it, and it's a big eye opener. But listen, I know that's the way it's going to go. But of the young lads that I've got on just now, they want to train all the way through. So fair play to them. But I think we need a little bit of a rest as well. So no, that's where I am at the moment, and that's where I'll be for the future as well, Kingswood, and hopefully we can get going, and you'll probably see loads of it on social media, 'cause that's the plan. Try and get it out there. So you'll probably see my ugly face on social media even more than you need to.
Well, I'll have to come down. I'll have to come see you, and we'll have to do.
Of course, yeah. Anytime you want, and I'll probably see you around in games and stuff anyway, mate.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not a hard person to find when it comes to football games, mate.
Yeah.
Brett, you've been absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you for coming on once again.
No problem at all, Joe.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. It was great to sit down with Brett and talk about his life, talk about his career, talk about his project with Kingswood United as well. Hopefully we will go see them next season. I'll put that on my list, that is for certain. So, like I say, if you enjoyed this, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Big thank you to our sponsor, of course, MKS Ground Care, who look after us, and they've been sponsoring the channel throughout the year. So without their support, we wouldn't be able to grow the channel as quickly as we can, really. So, but yes, like I say, plenty of episodes are coming soon. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.